the unemployment rate went down, because everybody was over 10 million people went overseas fighting. But a lot of people argue with me about my $1 trillion of cut in spending because they've been taught, the Keynesian teachers, government's supposed to spend more money when you're in trouble. And they said that if you do this, won't this really hurt the economy? But think about it. If you have $1 trillion and you cut it, of course the people are going to get to cut it. But after World War II, 10 million military people came home. We cut the budget by 60%. Taxes went down 30%. That's when the Depression ended. We come around to understanding that we do have a responsibility for strong national defense. We have to have a strong national defense. But the founders tried their best to protect us against the king going to war. But unfortunately, the presidents we've had in recent history have acted like kings, have not gotten permission from you through your congressman voting up and down for a war. And if we did that, we wouldn't have gone to war. And if we had to go to war, we'd fight them with them and then we'd come home. War was fought as a consequence or a sequence from 9/11. It had nothing to do with 9/11 because there was no weapons of mass destruction, no Al-Qaeda there. But when they came up with the resolution, I was on the Iraq, on the International Relations Committee, the resolution said, not a declaration of war, they said the president can do whatever he wants. Essentially that. If you want to go to war, fine. If you don't, you don't have to. And that was how they reneged on the responsibility, which sort of upset me a bit. And so I introduced a substitute resolution and said, okay, I told the committee, I said, look, you guys want to go to war? I don't want to go to war. But I'm offering a resolution of a declaration of war. I said, I'm not going to vote for it, but if you want to go to war, you vote it up and down. Of course, they were furious. Oh, no. And then they did voice vote and voted down. I said, I'm going to record the vote. You voted against the declaration of war. But it was explained to me by the committee chairman of the time that trying to explain to me the Constitution, he said, that part of the Constitution is anachronistic. We don't follow that part of the Constitution. That's really why we're in trouble today, because the Constitution doesn't mean a whole lot. They ignore it, the courts overrule it, and it's a real mess. We got into this mess by not following it. We can get out of it by sending only people to Washington that will obey the Constitution. Consequence of big government, whether it's for the entitlement and welfare system or for the warfare system, because the bigger the government gets, the smaller the people get, the less of the liberties that we have. It's characteristic under a war that civil liberties are compromised. People have sort of accepted this idea, well, under these special emergency conditions, we have to give up a little bit of our liberties. Let me tell you, you don't. You don't have to give up liberties. That we have a perpetual war worldwide in the country, and we're in 130 countries, 900 bases, because we're fighting a war on terrorism. We're fighting the Taliban. The Taliban are people who just want us out of the country. That's what they want. But the war is worldwide, and therefore we should expect a continuation of an attack on our civil liberties, much worse than I think it's been in the past. Today, of course, immediately after 9/11, I voted for the support to go after the Al-Qaeda. That is proper, even though I saw our foreign policies being seriously flawed, contributing to that problem. But they attack us, we got to deal with it, we go get them. But we didn't even kick and mob them for 10 years, and we went and occupied 2 countries in a country that had zero to do with it. So, but what did they do to the American people? We suffered from the consequence of that. Within 2 weeks, they had a bill on the floor they had been trying to pass for a couple years, and that bill was called the Patriot Act. That was voted very easy. I was sitting beside a member of Congress on that day, and I saw he was voting for it. I was voting against it. Voting against it, and I said, you know, it's only been on the floor for an hour. We don't even know exactly what's in it. He said, well, I know that. And I said, you didn't read it? No, I didn't read it. I said, you know there's going to be bad stuff in there. Yeah, I know that. I said, why are you voting for it? She said, how can I go home and tell my people back at home that I voted for the Patriot Act right after 9/11? He said, it was a difficult thing to explain. I said, but that's your job. Go home and explain it to them. Always, if you look at a bill's name on coming out of Congress, it's almost inevitable that it's going to do the opposite of what it says. So it was a very unpatriotic bill. If they would have called it to repeal the Fourth Amendment Act, I guess nobody would have voted for it. Next year, when we get a chance to repeal this, we won't call it repeal the Patriot Act. We'll call it restore the Fourth Amendment Act. Of course, the TSA couldn't assume that they'd have a right to search, seat, and fraud us all at the airport and check all our listeners. A year ago, the President announced in this progress against our liberties, he announced that it is a proper procedure for the President of the United States to assassinate American citizens. He's done it 3 times already. But the Congress hasn't been much better. The Congress passed a bill. The President signed it on January 1st of this year. The National Defense Authorization Act was just been mentioned because he was positively opposed to it as I was. This bill literally repeals profit common commerce, keeping the military out of state civil laws. It allows the military to arrest any American citizen if he's associated with any particular group. Just associated. No charges made, no trials. He can be arrested, put in a secret prison, denied an attorney, and kept indefinitely. And that's on the books. We put it on the books. That has to be reversed. What they did, there was one other provision that fortunately was removed. There was a provision that was in the bill and nearly passed. It had gone through the House and it was coming out of the Senate. But when it was on the Senate floor, and the provision said that if you are arrested and you are charged and you have a trial and you're found innocent, they could still keep you indefinitely in a prison. Fortunately, there was a senator from, I think it was Kentucky, that got I think you knew about all those problems. I don't think I've given you anything new. You've given me some more energy because of enthusiasm, because I know you're out there, and there are a lot of people out there, and the numbers are growing by leaps and bounds. Revolution, and let me tell you, there are a lot of young people wanting to lead the charge. Others in an older generation that have been rather frustrated over the years, discussion with both parties, and they're being energized by everybody together now that they're realizing that the end stage is getting closer for the system that we have. And that should encourage all of us because it's well-grounded, it's sound, there's sound economics and sound constitutional principles, sound moral judgment about what we should do. At least in this crowd, I wouldn't expect anybody to boo me for suggesting that we have that we apply a golden rule to our foreign policy. John Adams said that what we need is a powerless, irate minority. We don't need a majority. You need a minority. Because that's the way it is all the time, because they energize the rest of the people. So it's never what we have today, and even under communism, you don't have 51% voting for this. It's an irate majority, a minority that emphasizes this. But this is what we have today. We have it, and it's growing, and we are influencing other people. We are in transition. I think Justin coming to Congress is representing this. There's going to be a lot more. Happening across the country, we can't even keep track of it all. I go around the country, this really got moving about 4 years ago, but I meet people who are in office, as state representatives and local offices. They're all over the place, and this is wonderful. That's how a real revolution occurs. And ultimately, if these ideas are to prevail, they will not be Republican ideas. They have to be pervasive and invade both Democrats, Independents, and Republicans alike, because that is what we're doing. That the reason why he had to get us off the gold standard and put on wage and price controls, he said, we're all Keynesians now. But someday we have to reverse that. We need the people to say, we all believe in the free market and sound money now. That an idea whose time has come, it cannot be stopped by anything military. The armies can't stop it, governments can't stop it. And I really do believe these ideas, whose time has come. And they're not brand new. I didn't invent them. They're not good. It's part of our American tradition. It's part of a tradition that's been going on for many hundreds of years. But these ideas have only been tested in a small manner. But the best test has been here in this country. And then we became the wealthiest and the largest middle class ever. And now, of course, the middle class is shrinking, and we're greatly in debt. We're getting poorer. So our test is going to fade unless we pick up those pieces and refine it. We don't have to go back to anything. We don't have to go back to the 19th century gold standard, because there's a better understanding about gold and money than there ever was. There's a better understanding of economic policy, entitlement system. So this is the reason that we put this, that if we put this together and bring people together, this is going to work. And that is what freedom does. It brings people together. We'll never agree on how we want to use our freedoms, because we'll never agree in a room like this. There might be 50 different religious values and some with no Christian religious values involved. But freedom answers the question, because we don't impose ourselves on other people. Not only in religious values, but economic values. This idea that the government has to take care of us and protect us from ourselves and make sure no single person falls through the crack. The more they try to prevent people from falling through the crack, the more people fall through the crack. That's what it's all about. So we don't want to tell other people how to spend their money. Does that mean some won't do a good job and they might have problems? That is true. But it will also incite people to do more for themselves. They will have a greater incentive, and there will be a family responsibility, a community responsibility, a more local responsibility. There will be greater wealth in the country. There is no doubt history shows that the freer a country, the wealthier a country. And we've lost the moral high ground because we give it up to people who say, no, the only way you can spread fairness around the world and around this country is by government force, by forcibly redistributing wealth and regulating. It doesn't work. It leads to the crisis that we have here today. So therefore, we have to have a firmer grasp of how freedom works, how the marketplace works, and why you have to have sound money. And it will change. That's all there is to it. But that's where we're making the great progress. This is why it is so wonderful what is happening. We should be optimistic about it, but not casual about it. We can't say this is going to be easy, because those who are in charge and who have control of the money system and control of the financial system and control of the military and the foreign policy, they will not go away quietly. And yet, this will end because, like I said the other night on TV, they don't accept, the opposition won't accept the moral and the constitutional argument. They will not be able to get away from the economic argument because this can't go on because we won't have the money to pursue these policies. Those who expect to enjoy the fruits of liberty, much like man, undergo the fatigue of supporting it. So there is some fatigue. I don't like to call it sacrifice, but there is some fatigue, and there is some effort. So in many ways, those of you who would come to a meeting like this have a greater responsibility because the masses out there will not be understanding the same things that you do. So if you understand this, you have to bear the burden of the responsibility of doing something about it because it's a greater burden. But if you believe in it, that's what has to happen. And a lot of people come up and say, okay, what do you want me to do? And you know, my answer is, do whatever you want to do. Everybody will have a different role to play. Some will run for Congress, other offices, some will support people, some will make a lot of money, encourage us by donating money. Who knows what people will do? But I think the most important thing that we all do, which I try very hard to do and continue to do, which I learned early on, is try to understand how you can place these arguments on and compete with the arguments. So it's education. Ultimately, education is the test. But just think of what we have on nightly TV. And I get frustrated because I never get asked questions from an Austrian economic viewpoint. But they haven't been taught it. And some Muslims don't have the biggest idea what they are. So this is the thing. So education is important. Then you say, well, then what do I do? Well, I'll tell you what, there'll be something for you, one way or the other. And that is what's so wonderful. And I really do believe it brings people together. It should be a diverse group because everybody's going to use their freedoms in a different way, socially or economically. People should come together. So we should come together to fight for the principle which we can all enjoy in a different manner, and that is enjoying the liberty that we have gotten in a natural, God-given way. I thank you very much for coming.